What does it feel like to wake up not just from sleep, but from the deepest slumber of your soul? A true spiritual awakening is not a trend, not a fleeting moment of inspiration, but a profound, life-altering shift in the way you perceive yourself, others, and existence itself. It's messy, beautiful, confusing, liberating, and sometimes terrifying all at once. It's not something you can force or fake. It arrives, often unexpectedly, like a tidal wave that upends everything you thought you knew. But here's the thing: awakening isn't about checking off milestones or following someone else's blueprint. It's about remembering who you are underneath all the noise, the conditioning, the stories you've been told, and the ones you keep telling yourself. It's a process, deeply personal and uniquely yours, but there are signs, markers on the path that let you know you're not imagining this. You're in it. Let's break this down together, one step at a time. And as we go, I want you to really think about this. What if everything falling apart in your life right now is actually everything falling into place? Would you trust it, or would you fight it? The first sign of a true spiritual awakening is discomfort. I know that doesn't sound like a gift, does it? But think about this: growth never comes from staying comfortable. When you're awakening, you start to feel a deep, unshakable restlessness, like you've outgrown the life you're living. Maybe the job that used to excite you now feels hollow. Maybe the friends you've had for years suddenly feel like strangers. Maybe you look in the mirror and don't even recognize yourself anymore. This discomfort isn't here to punish you. It's here to wake you up. It's like the universe is shaking you by the shoulders, saying, "There's more for you. Stop settling." But what do most of us do when we feel uncomfortable? We resist. We try to hold on to the old, even though it's clearly not working anymore. We cling to the familiar, even though it's the very thing that's holding us back. Let me ask you this: if you stopped running from the discomfort and actually sat with it, what might it be trying to tell you?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
The second sign is a shift in priorities. When you're in a spiritual awakening, the things that used to matter don't seem to matter as much anymore. Maybe you used to care about climbing the corporate ladder, but now you're questioning why you're even climbing it in the first place. Maybe you used to chase material success, but now you're realizing it doesn't fill the void you thought it would. Maybe you're craving something deeper: authenticity, connection, purpose. But here's the tricky part: when your priorities shift, it can feel like you're losing yourself. Who are you without the goals you used to have? Without the labels you used to wear? Without the life you've spent years building? It's scary, isn't it? But let me tell you something: you're not losing yourself. You're shedding what was never really you to begin with. And yes, people might not understand. They might judge you, question you, try to pull you back into the old version of yourself that makes them comfortable. That's okay. Not everyone will come with you on this journey, and that's not a reflection of your worth or theirs. It's just the way it is. So here's the question: if you stripped away everything you thought you needed to be, who would you be left with? And would that person feel free? Now we come to the third sign: heightened awareness. This is when the world starts to look different. Colors seem brighter. Sounds seem louder. You notice things you've never noticed before, like the way sunlight hits the leaves, the way someone's energy feels when they walk into a room, the way your body reacts to certain people, places, or situations. But this isn't just about noticing the beauty in the world. It's about noticing everything. You start to see through the illusions, the lies you've been told about what success looks like, what happiness feels like, what you should want or do or be. You start to question everything, from the way society is structured to the beliefs you've held onto for years. And that kind of awareness can be overwhelming. It's like being handed a flashlight in a dark room. At first, you might want to turn it off because the light feels too harsh. But if you keep it on, you realize that the light isn't here to hurt you, it's here to show you the truth. So let me ask you, if you could see the truth of your life right now, without filters or illusions, what would you see? And would you have the courage to face it? The fourth sign is release. Awakening often comes with a deep letting go of old habits, old relationships, old identities. It can feel like grieving, because in a way it is. You're saying goodbye to parts of yourself that no longer serve you, and that can be painful, even if you know it's for the best. But here's the thing about release: it creates space. Space for something new, something better, something more aligned with who you're becoming. It's like clearing out a cluttered room. At first it feels empty, and that emptiness can be uncomfortable. But then you realize that the emptiness isn't a void, it's an invitation. Here's the tricky part: letting go doesn't mean you're weak or that you failed. It means you're brave enough to make room for what's next. So here's a question for you: what are you still holding on to, even though you know it's time to let it go? And what might happen if you finally did? The fifth sign, and this one is the most beautiful, the most profound, is connection. When you're in a true spiritual awakening, you start to feel connected to everything. To yourself, to others, to nature, to the universe, to something greater than yourself. It's like remembering that you're a drop in the ocean, but also the ocean in a drop. This connection doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy or perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never feel pain or struggle again. But it does mean you'll start to see the bigger picture. You'll start to trust that even the challenges, even the heartbreaks, even the moments when everything feels like it's falling apart, they're all part of the process. They're not happening to you, they're happening for you. And when you feel that connection, when you truly understand that you're not alone, that you're not separate from the rest of existence, something shifts. Life starts to feel less like a battle and more like a dance. So here's the final question: what would it feel like to stop fighting life and start flowing with it? Could you trust that everything, even the hard stuff, is leading you exactly where you need to go? Let's get real. A spiritual awakening is beautiful, yes, but it's not all peace and light. It's raw, it's messy, and it can leave you questioning everything. You might feel like you're standing in the ruins of your old life, looking at the pieces and wondering what the hell you're supposed to do next. That's why we need to talk about how to live in this new state of awareness without getting stuck in the confusion or overwhelmed by the intensity of it all. The first thing you need to understand is that awakening doesn't mean you suddenly have everything figured out. It doesn't mean you're floating through life on some blissful cloud. Awakening is more like learning how to see clearly after years of walking through fog. At first, the clarity can be disorienting. You see truths you didn't want to face, patterns you didn't want to admit, and responsibilities you can't ignore anymore. But clarity is power. When you see things for what they are, you can start choosing differently. Here's the challenge: clarity doesn't always come with instructions. You might know something isn't working, but you might not know what to do about it yet. That's okay. The key is to start small. You don't need to rebuild your entire life overnight. It's about taking one step, then the next, then the next. If your job feels soul-crushing, maybe you start by exploring other options in your free time. If a relationship feels draining, maybe you set one small boundary and see how it feels. The point is to start moving in the direction that feels right, no matter how small the steps are. But let's talk about fear, because fear is going to show up. It always does. Fear will tell you to stay where you are, to stick with what's familiar, to avoid rocking the boat. Fear isn't your enemy, it's just trying to protect you, even if it's doing so in a way that keeps you stuck. The trick isn't to fight fear, it's to acknowledge it and keep going anyway. You can be scared and still move forward. You can feel uncertain and still take action. Here's something that most people don't realize: spiritual awakening isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more of who you already are. It's about peeling away the layers of conditioning, expectation, and fear until you get back to your core. And that core is already whole. You don't need to fix yourself because you're not broken. You just need to remember who you are underneath all the noise. Let's break this down into something practical. One of the best ways to stay grounded during an awakening is to create daily rituals that support your growth. These don't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. It could be as simple as sitting quietly for 5 minutes in the morning, journaling about what's on your mind, or spending a few moments outside connecting with nature. The point is to create touch points in your day where you can come back to yourself, especially when things feel chaotic. Pay attention to how you're spending your energy. Awakening heightens your sensitivity, and you'll start noticing how certain people, places, or activities either energize you or drain you. Honor that. If a conversation feels like it's sucking the life out of you, it's okay to step away. If scrolling through social media leaves you feeling empty, it's okay to put your phone down. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's necessary. Let's go deeper into relationships, because this is a big one during awakening. When you start to see the world differently, you might notice that some of your relationships don't fit anymore. Maybe you've been playing a role in someone else's life that doesn't feel authentic to you anymore. Maybe you've been tolerating behavior that you can't ignore anymore. This doesn't mean you need to cut everyone out of your life, but it does mean you need to be honest first with yourself, and then with the people around you. Honesty is hard. It's vulnerable. It's uncomfortable. But it's also freeing. When you stop pretending to be someone you're not, you create space for real connection that's based on truth, not obligation or expectation. And yes, some people might walk away. That's hard, but it's not the end of the world. The people who are meant to be in your life will stay, and new connections will come when you're living in alignment with who you really are. Let's talk about trust. Awakening often comes with a lot of uncertainty. You're stepping into the unknown, leaving behind the familiar, and that can feel terrifying. But there's a difference between uncertainty and danger. Just because you don't know what's ahead doesn't mean you're not safe. Trusting the process doesn't mean you're blindly optimistic or ignoring reality. It means you're open to the idea that life might be working in your favor, even when it doesn't look like it. Think about this: how many times in your life has something you thought was a disaster turned out to be a blessing in disguise? How many times have you looked back and realized that the things you resisted the most were the things that helped you grow the most? Awakening asks you to trust that even the hard stuff is part of the process. Here's another thing to keep in mind: awakening isn't a one-time event. It's not something you check off your spiritual to-do list and then move on from. It's a lifelong process. You'll have moments of clarity and moments of confusion. Times when you feel deeply connected and times when you feel completely lost. That's normal. Growth isn't linear, it's cyclical. You'll revisit old wounds, old patterns, and old questions, but each time you do, You'll come at them from a deeper level of awareness. There's no finish line in this process, and that's a good thing. Because awakening isn't about reaching some perfect state of being. It's about learning how to live fully, authentically, and wholeheartedly in the present moment, whatever that moment looks like. Let's end with this: awakening is a gift, but like any gift, it's up to you to decide what to do with it. You can resist it, try to ignore it, or fight against it, but that only makes the process harder. Or you can embrace it, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's messy, even when it feels like you're falling apart. Because on the other side of that discomfort is something incredible: freedom, clarity, connection, and a deeper understanding of who you are and why you're here. Let's bring this all together, because the truth is, a spiritual awakening isn't something that happens to you, it's something that happens through you. It's a gift, yes, but it's also a responsibility. You've been handed a new way of seeing, a deeper way of living, and what you do with that will shape not only your life but the lives of those around you. When you wake up, you start seeing the cracks in the systems, the illusions in the stories, the ways we've all been conditioned to live small. But instead of letting this overwhelm you, it becomes an opportunity. You realize you don't have to fix the entire world, you just have to start with yourself. The way you choose to show up authentically, truthfully, and powerfully creates ripples. Every time you live in alignment with your soul, you give others permission to do the same. And yes, it's hard. There will be days when you feel like you're slipping back into old patterns, days when the weight of change feels too heavy, days when you question whether it's all worth it. But those moments aren't failures, they're part of the process. Growth doesn't erase struggle. It teaches you how to move through it with more grace and awareness. So here's the final truth: a spiritual awakening isn't about becoming someone else. It's about coming home to who you've been all along. It's about stripping away the lies and illusions until all that's left is your raw, unfiltered essence. That's the gift. That's the power. And when you live from that place, the world starts to shift around you, not because you're forcing it, but because you're finally in harmony with it. So if you're feeling the chaos, the discomfort, or the pull to something deeper, trust that this is part of the awakening. You're not lost. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. And the more you lean into that, the more the gift will unfold. And when it does, it won't just change your life, it'll remind you that you've always been part of something far greater than yourself. That's the power of waking up.